hours on the cross, a guard came up to him and said, just surrender and it'll be over. Peter, I have to know, you're on the cross for those 4 hours. Why did you not surrender? You were under amazing pain.
开始说话。首先我谢谢我所信仰的主，我谢谢布朗拜克，我谢谢在位参加聚会的每一位先生们、女士们、朋友们。因着语言的缘故，因着时间的缘故，我交给我的属灵的女儿，请她来替我说。
Thank you for everyone being here, and thank you for this great day. It says, because in the spirit of truth, God made me firmly recognize that the path of following the Lord is a path of denying oneself, carrying up one's own cross, and following him. The victory of the apostles, prophets, and saints throughout generations have come from faithfully walking this path. On the other hand, people like Judas Iscariot and Demas represents those who indulge in the flesh, following their own desires, crave vanity, and align themselves with the world, ultimately ending in tragedy. Looking at the 2,000 years of church history, the same pattern holds true. From the 1st century to the early 4th century, believers endured persecution from Roman political powers externally and religious opposition from the Jews internally. And the church remained steadfast, holding firm to the pure faith by recognizing and following the Lord on the path of the cross.
Yeah.
Pastor Pan.
Yeah.
Get to you in a second here. In May 2025, I flew to Midland to meet with Bob Fu, Pastor Pan, and members of the Mayflower Church. What I witnessed will remain with me for the rest of my life. At first glance, their new home didn't look like much. Just a few nondescript metal buildings at the end of a dusty road, the middle of nowhere. Not a very auspicious place for the Mayflower Church to make harbor, I thought to myself. Then I walked into one of the buildings for a potluck dinner. The scene was electric, full of joy, laughter, and peace. Kids were running around, laughing, playing, being kids. I couldn't hear myself think, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I gazed at the adults in the room and saw the same happiness, the same love, the same commitment to each other. This was their home, their church, their family. They were free now to practice their faith in a dusty oil field in Texas. Things had looked dismal from the outside, but what I witnessed on the inside could not have been more golden. Before dinner, Pastor Pan led everyone in prayer, as he had in China, South Korea, and Thailand. Their prayers had come true against overwhelming odds. A part of me was not surprised that they were rescued. As it says in the Bible, God strongly supports those whose heart is completely his. I want you to reflect on the whole journey from China to South Korea to Thailand to the United States. How were you able to make this happen? How was your congregation able to survive?
It 我用一个词来形容，就是神迹。
Says one word that I will use to talk about this will be a miracle.
在中国受到迫害这个过程，这个是全世界都知道的事儿。
The persecution of Christians in China, the world knows about it, or like.
那么在前面2个礼拜前，我收到有另外一位牧师，比我年纪大的牧师，叫曹山长牧师，他是美国的，他的妻子是美国人，他现在坐了7年牢之后又离开了监牢，现在还是在被监视，无法回到美国。哪怕是他现在在 在癌症的晚期，仍然是在疾病当中，仍然是没法离开。
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I had received message that Pastor Cao Xiang, who is also another pastor, who is older than me, he's also has an American wife. He was imprisoned in China for 7 years, recently released, but is unable to come back to America. He was diagnosed with cancer.
在整个我和五月花教会逃亡的过程中，其实我们能做的事情只有一件事，就是拼命的喊救命。
The only thing that I could do during the whole process of leaving and leading the Mayflower Church out was just to keep shouting and asking for help.
像刚才布朗贝克大使说的，在美国的信徒和美国的政府站起来去抵挡这种跨境追捕的时候，我们就获救。
And just like we mentioned, when the American government stepped in and helped us out of the transnational repression, out of the reaches of the Chinese government, we were saved.
我特别要感谢沃尔夫议员，当我们还在韩国的时候，我听到传过来沃尔夫议员说了一句话，说我必须要帮助在我还没有死之前，我希望我能够看到这群孩子。
Yes, I want to specifically thank Congressman Frank Wolf for everything that you have done to help our church congregation. You've gone out of your way and said, I would like to see these kids come to America. And so that has helped tremendously on our case.
Yeah. 当上帝也听了我们呼求的声音，是我们在非常艰难的时候，甚至在泰国被逮捕，要送回中国之前的那一刻，我听到沃夫议员有给布林肯打电话说，必须要马上行动。如果五月花有人有孩子被送回去了，流血的罪就在你的身上。OK， 所以几个小时之后，美国政府迅速的行动。那我们在监牢里面待了7天，就飞到美国来了。
So the last part, with when we were in Thailand, it was there was a moment where we were almost sent to prison, and that was extremely worrying for everyone at the church. But again, Congressman Wolf made a personal call to Blinken at the time, Secretary of State, and had got us out and allowed us to come to America. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Corey, where do I start with you? First, I'll read a page. Wang Yi, who's the pastor who's in prison now in China, Wang Yi touches my soul in so many ways, not just because I pray for his future, but because being unable to talk to him, to hear his deepest thoughts and dreams, reminds me of the other men and women I can't talk to who are imprisoned in China and around the world for daring to have a relationship with God and being unwilling to keep it hidden. The names we don't know, the voices we don't hear, the brave individuals who in all likelihood will die behind bars. I wonder, what is on their mind as the weeks and months pass by? Do they question their faith, or is their faith stronger than ever? I suspect the latter, just as it was for Peter Chu, and no doubt many others. I think back to when Sharon Pate came into my office and told me about the missionary Uzbekistan who was in jail and the work we did to get him out, and more after him. The struggle for religious freedom has come a long way in these past 3 decades, but not far enough. Not when people like Wang Yi languish in a prison cell for believing in his Lord and Savior and in the eternal. Corey, you know Wang Yi's case very well. How's he doing now? What can you tell us?
Yeah, I've been friends of their family for a while. I mean, I can tell you that no one from the family has been able to visit him within the last year. It's been over a year, so all the information I have is at least a year old. We do have Chinese agents that relay information to the family, so you can take that for what it's worth. But 1 year ago, his wife, Zhang was able to visit him in prison, so here's what we know based on that. So since his imprisonment, Wang Yi has lost at least 50 pounds. He gained intentionally 30 pounds before going to prison, believing that he would be arrested. So he prepared himself in that way. So he's at least 20 pounds under the original weight. His wife reports that he is, quote, darker and uglier than before. What she means by that is he looks haggard and unwell. His body has weakened considerably. Presumably, we know based on being able to talk to the other 35 who were in prison with early reign that there is some torture involved. We certainly believe that he's being subjected to some kind of medical, physical, or psychological torture. But though his body has weakened, I'm happy to report that his mind is still sharp. We know that, based on the most recent visit, Wang Yi is one of the great public intellectuals in China. His mind is incredibly important to China. And so even those outside the church say that Wang Yi's mind is very important. And so we're grateful for that. We know he reads books voraciously from the prison library. He has not yet been given a Bible, which is something that we've been requesting for many years. We also know his eyesight has worsened as he's been reading, and he's not been able to get a new prescription for glasses in all this time. Wang Yi's soul is also, I'm very glad to report, is in very good shape. He holds on to his faith, even though he's in prison in these awful conditions. He cannot see his wife or child regularly. They write letters to him. They don't arrive. They cannot talk to him on the phone. But however, whenever they are able to interact with him, his soul is intact. Wang Yi's body is weak. He has hepatitis C. He has gout. He has no regular access to medical care. But his mind and body are sharp, and his family is grateful. And if I may add here, and I think Wang Yi would want me to say this, that when we advocate for Wang Yi, we don't just advocate for Wang Yi, we advocate for all of those who are up here like this today, and we also advocate for people like Ezra Jin, Grace's father. The president wheels up pretty soon, and we've heard recently that he intends to bring up Ezra's case. We're very grateful for that, but we don't want Ezra and others to be like Wang Yi and us be having a conference in 2033, 7.5 years after their imprisonment. We really want to see the president and others bring him home. And so that's our prayer and that's our hope. And I think Wang Yi would want me to advocate for Ezra Jin today.
Thank you. Shunyan. She spent the first of her 2 years imprisonment at a detention center in northeast China. The guards taunted her constantly. Look at you now, they said. You are wealthy and had a great career, but now you are in jail. How Shunyan was able to survive is beyond me. God's plan, that's the only answer I've been able to come up with in order that she could tell the world what is going on in China. She told me the same thing Pastor Pan said. She did not hate her oppressors. The guards tried to get her to sign some documents renouncing her faith, something they attempted with every Falun Gong practitioner. 3 other female prisoners, strong women in their 20s, were forced by the guards to beat her on the back with a 3-foot club made of 2 iron rods twisted together. After the beating went on for a while, Shunyan banged her head against a wall. Were you trying to kill yourself, I asked? No, she insisted. She was trying to show the women that no matter what they did, she would not renounce her faith. Even so, the prisoners grabbed a hold of her. If they hadn't, she might have died that day. Her back was drenched in blood. Another time, the authorities made her sit on a small stool for 10 hours, maybe longer, in a circle they drew, and told her she wasn't permitted to venture outside of it. Whenever any part of her body crossed the circle, they beat her. A thought occurred to me. Why didn't she spare herself any further torture and give them what they wanted? Sign the stupid documents. Renounce your faith. It won't mean you are renouncing it in your heart. So I have to ask you, after serving in prison, and why did you Why did you continue to distribute the flyers? That's what you were arrested for the first time. You did it again. Why, with everything you had to risk, why did you keep doing it?
Thank you, Michael.
您为什么就是被监狱里面那么被就是
Louder.
折磨之后，还要继续发这些传单？
我像所有的有信仰的人一样的，因为信仰的力量是无穷的。当他知道一个人生的目的，他会为他的信仰而坚守，不会改变的。
So it's that once a person understands the true meaning of faith, they are often willing to pay the ultimate price, even sacrificing their life. This is why historical figures of integrity have risked their life to speak out against injustice. Similarly, Falun Gong practitioners, even when arrested or sentenced and facing the threat of forced organ harvesting, continue to clarify the truth. They strive to prevent those misled by lies from becoming accomplices and sacrificial lambs of the CCP. This is a profound act of kindness achieved at the cost of one's own life.
Thank you. Thank all of you very much. Appreciate that. Second panel, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's so much more that can be said about what these people endured, and I hope you all get the book and read it, because you'll learn about how the government operates. That's the phenomenal part about this book. Really the political aspects and the other issues that we hear about from time to time are woven into their life stories. Mrs. Wang, for example, had her blood taken, a sample of her blood taken. We know that's the prelude for forced organ harvesting, is to do tissue typing and screening for blood types, blood matches. So our second panel, I'd like to welcome Michael Arkush is going to be interviewing them as well. Is Marigold Turson here yet? Did she arrive? She's here?
Where's she? Yeah, come on.
Oh, okay, good. Please come to the stage and take your seat. Welcome. Marigold was jailed upon arriving back in China, which was her homeland in Xinjiang, and she was immediately jailed after studying and getting married in Egypt. And they took her and tortured her. It was part of their forced assimilation program, the very brutal forced assimilation of religious and ethnic minorities. She was beaten by 15 officers. She was later arrested again and imprisoned and subject to electric prod torture. But probably the worst thing was that her weeks-old baby boy was murdered while she was jailed the first time. He was taken from her upon landing, and she never saw him alive again. So she has endured one form of persecution or another since she was 12 years old, when she was forcibly indoctrinated and told to basically reject and turn her back on her culture, her people, her faith, and yet she survives. She had fake relatives planted in her home. She survives and continues today, and we're very, very grateful to you, to bearing witness to this, so that we understand the character of this regime. Frances Wei, could you please join us? Frances is from Hong Kong, and she began fighting for freedoms in her home place in Hong Kong when she was 14 years old. And when the writing was on the wall about which way Hong Kong was going to go, is going to be swallowed up by China by 2020, she left. Her parents wanted her to study in the United States. She came here, but that persecution has followed her. She has received death threats in this country. Her college did not defend her against the death threats. They wanted reconciliation or her to go on without even acknowledging that she was being threatened with death, even though it came in an email. She has a $1 million, $126 thousand US dollar bounty on her head from the CCP while she's been here. And she is now the policy manager for the Committee for Freedom in Hong Kong Foundation. So she continues to do the good fight as well. Ennis Freedom, please come to the stage. Ennis Freedom needs no introduction. You probably know him and his story, or can guess it. He was in the NBA. He was a fabulous basketball player from Turkey originally. He changed his name to Freedom when he came to the United States after he, I guess, ruffled some feathers. He decided that he should speak out for freedom of the Uyghur people and the Tibetan people. He did that in the spirit that the George Floyd people were doing it. He rode on his basketball shoes as he played Free Tibet, Save the Uyghurs. And for that, he missed out on a $50 million basketball contract. He was shunned by the league. And there is also a bounty on his head from his native Turkey. So he will tell you his story. And then finally on this panel is Rinpoche. If you would please come to the podium. He's a Tibetan Buddhist from Tibet. And as a child, he was studying in a monastery and was, when the communists took over, he was indoctrinated. And his monasteries probably used to have something like, 4,000 monks there, and now has just a couple hundred. It's basically been destroyed, which is the aim of the government. And he says that it is full of spies. He left Tibet, he escaped Tibet when he thought he was going to be forced to validate the false Panchen Lama. So the government has picked the Panchen Lama. They intend to pick the next Dalai Lama. This is a deeply spiritual, deeply religious ceremony to do this, time-consuming, painstaking ritual to select these figures, these leaders of his religion. And the government has appointed itself to do it now. So he will talk about his experience and his decision to leave as well. So thank you.
Miracle, I'm going to start with you. Nina brought up the relatives. The first evening was one she will never forget. Her father started to set up a space for the two men in the living room, as he would for any relatives. Only they didn't want to sleep in the living room. They wanted to sleep in the bedroom. Miracle, her aunt, and the two children slept with one officer, her father with the other. Her only refuge was the bathroom. And she didn't feel safe there either, worried there might be cameras or a microphone to catch her if she tried to recite her prayers. Her prayers would have to be recited in silence, as they have by so many Uyghurs since the crackdown began. Even so, her faith was stronger than ever. The relatives didn't leave her alone. One followed her into the kitchen, putting his arms around her while she opened the fridge. She threatened to complain about him to his superiors. He laughed, saying his superiors wouldn't care one bit. If anything, complaining might send her back to prison. The next day, he ran his hands under her dress and fondled her breast. Another morning, she woke up with a man's hand in her hair. She thought of killing him or killing herself, or both. A knife, it occurred to her, would do the trick, except there weren't only two knives in the house, and they were attached to a chain in the kitchen. The Chinese authorities, they thought of everything, had taken away the other knives, as they did in all the homes owned by the Uyghurs. That didn't stop a woman living in the apartment upstairs. One night, the Chinese relative in that apartment raped the woman's 8-year-old daughter. Miracle heard everything, and then nothing, and then a scream. The mother had killed the man. The police took her away, and Miracle never saw her again, the daughter either. We've talked a lot about this. And Ambassador brought it up a little bit. What should the United States government do, and what can the American people do in response to what's gone on?
I think United States government and live in U.S. all people, they know what is a freedom. I just they are keeping together, do some action, or government take some action to save my Uyghur people, my homeland. They are all the children, the parents separated, and all the father and mother sent for detention or for labor camp, all the children in the children's center. So we don't have any freedom in my city, in my country, for my people. So I hope all of you raise your voice. Let the government take some action. Save that kids. Of course, as a mother, I cannot save my one son. I save, at least U.S. government save my another 2 kids. They are live here. But of course, I cannot save anybody in my homeland. I just do my best to speak out, let people help together, do some action, let government do some action, let Chinese government stop that genocide. Thank you.
Thank you. Francis. In April 2025, a few days before Easter, I caught up with Frances on a Zoom call. She looked awful, and it was no wonder why. About a week earlier, her parents had been picked up by the police for questioning. It was the second time this had happened. The first time was shortly after the arrest warrant and the bounty was put on her head. That was to be expected. This time, Frances was shocked. The only explanation she could think of was that the government was retaliating for sanctions the U.S. had imposed against Chinese and Hong Kong officials, something she had long advocated for. Frances spent days in her D.C. apartment watching press footage of her parents. Leaving the police station, her mom frowned behind her mask while her dad shielded his eyes as he walked through a crowd of reporters. It broke my heart, she wrote to friends and colleagues, to see them treated as though they had done something wrong when they hadn't. They are good people, good citizens who care for others. They are just a mother and a father like anyone else's. She was overcome with guilt. Her parents were going through this because of her. She felt like she had failed them. As a daughter, Frances told me, my duty is to take care of them as they age and give them a sense of relief that I'm taking care of myself. I've been unable to do that. I'm adding to their burdens. I tried to talk her out of blaming herself to get her to see that she has not failed as a daughter. Being a parent, I have no doubt they are proud of her standing up for her ideals and for her people. It's so hard for you to advocate for Hong Kong, knowing the impact it could have on your parents. Can you talk about how difficult that is and the decision you make every day to advocate for the people of Hong Kong?
Sorry. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I just recalling those scenes is very difficult. I think I remember just spending the whole night watching videos of my parents walking out from the police station. There are other activists who have experienced the same thing, but at that time it was very shocking because it was just 2 days after the US imposed sanctions and just after one of the legislation that I've been pushing for on the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Offices was also reintroduced in Congress. Both of the things that were something I have been long advocated for while I'm in the US in my position at the CFHK Foundation. And that time, the police really arranged they contacted, from my understanding, they contacted all the journalists
all the media outlets they could reach in the city, and for them to be prepared to station outside the police station to capture my parents leaving the police stations, just so they would look like criminals and would look like they have done something wrong, they've raised a bad kid, and it will then soon be broadcast to everyone in Hong Kong to know that who are these parents, what they how they look like, and what their daughter has done. And I think I've fought for Hong Kong's democracy for actually more than 10 years. I started my activism since I was 14 years old in Hong Kong as a student. And it has always been my decision whether or not I want to go onto the streets and say, free Hong Kong or, democracy for Hong Kong. It has always been my own independent choice to make, to do that. But then at that moment, it's a realization that, what I do here in the US, my protected free speech, would actually affect my parents and create consequences to them, and they become the bargaining, they become what's on the table. Their health, everything, their life, their reputation are all there to be used as a threat against me. And so that feels like it feels like I have lost my agency, that I have to, every time when I make a decision, every time I say something here in the US, I have to think about what would carry on to my parents in Hong Kong, what my friends would face in Hong Kong for just simply being my friends, for my activism. And so I think in the book it also mentioned later on how I kind of try to regain my agency and to actually share to people what my parents mean to me, what it was like to be raised by them. They're good people. They care so much about others, and they spend their leisure time, not just their work time, their leisure time to care about others, bring us to senior homes and visit seniors, people who need help. They really carry the Catholic faith to the core values and pass it down to me. And I want people to remember them as who they are, as how I grew up knowing them. And so I actually didn't stop talking about them. I actually went out to the social media and share how great they are. And at that time, I feel actually very relieved to be able to regain my agency and share who they are for me. But I think this is like the challenge that so many activists face. They would rather silence themselves and maybe do something else and stop their advocacy. And the CCP has gotten it so far, gotten away with it so effectively. And so that's why people, become quiet because of the pressure. And I think that if I can overcome that fear, I can break that cycle, I can tell the CCP that this doesn't work. And I can have the right to have the power to go to see US politicians and see policymakers and tell them that you can also do something to help us. If we can fight against this, if I can stand with this threat, if I can take that, you can also use your power, your influence to help us to fight this evil regime.
Thank you. Thank you. Ennis. In 2005, he went back home for 2 weeks to Turkey to see family and friends and to clear up a few things. From now on, Ennis told his parents, I will be taking stances about what's going on in this country, and because of what I say, you might get a lot of heat and hateful comments, and might even be thrown in jail one day. If you guys are ready for it, great, then say so, but if not, let me know now. It reminds me of Frances and what her parents have had to endure. There's a steep price for demonstrating courage. No wonder we don't see more of it. Ennis's mother said exactly what I expected she would say. We are with you to the end, she told her son. If you are speaking the truth and siding with innocent people, we support you no matter what. Ennis left Turkey with peace in his heart, to a point. He knew it might be the last time he would see his parents and his native land. People think I hate Turkey, he said. That's not true. I just hate the Erdogan regime. The night before he left, he took his family to dinner at a restaurant by the water. He doesn't recall doing that before. They didn't talk about anything political, only personal stuff. Everyone was happy to be together. The cab to take him to the airport arrived early the next day. And this was right. In 2016, his parents received a lot of heat and hateful comments. One time when his mother reached the cashier at the supermarket, the guy spit in her face. "Your son is a terrorist. Get out of here." His dad, meanwhile, was kicked out of the mosque and lost his teaching job at the university. I think about the decision not to take the money from the Turkish basketball team, how different his father's life and the lives of his whole family would have been. You gave up so much, NBA career, all that money, to advocate for people in China. And tell me why you made that decision and how do you feel about it now?
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for being here. It's actually when you're fighting against the evil regimes out there, especially like CCP, you don't get a lot of supports. And when I say you don't get a lot of supports, I'm talking about my teammates. Unfortunately, they have millions of dollars of tied with the Chinese Communist Party, so they don't really make the right decisions. But I just want to say thank you guys for being here. Ambassador Brownback, you guys, and everyone who helped us bring us here. I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I think the reason I'm, started to take this stance because it's bigger than myself, bigger than basketball and bigger than NBA. Everybody's talking about, me losing my career because of the CCP, but I haven't seen my family almost 12 years because I wanted to stand up for innocent people in Turkey. It is important to use your platform to talk about what's important and try to be the voice of all those innocent people out there who don't have a voice, And I was, talking about the problems that happened in Turkey for the last, 10, 11 years. And then finally, an Uyghur parent reached out to me. I was like, listen, you call yourself an, activist, but there are millions of, innocent Uyghurs are in concentration camps getting tortured and raped every day, I stopped for a second. I was like, you know what, you're right. I'm going to do my research and I'm going to start talking about these issues. It was so interesting because when I was talking about the problems that are happening in Turkey, the NBA supported me. It was so amazing. The Adam Silver, the commissioner, the NBA, my teammates, my coaches, the fans, everybody was supporting me. I was like, it's so important because my teammates were like my brothers, and when I was getting so much support from my teammates, it gave me so much courage. It gave me so much hope to fight for what's right. And the day I started to talk about the problems that are happening in China, that support was nowhere to be found. And I was confused. I'm like, this is not political. I'm not talking about any political issue. I'm literally talking about the innocent people and their lives. Anyway, so the more I talked about, right, the more it bothered NBA. I had a conversation with Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, and obviously before I have a conversation with him, I did a little research, and I think the relationship between the CCP, the China and the NBA is around $6 billion annually, right? So I was like, when I have a conversation with Adam, I was like, Adam, listen, I know that there are a lot of money involved, but this is, I'm literally standing up for innocent people out there. You guys have to support me. And even he admitted himself, he's like, listen, it's a different system in China and blah, blah. We have a lot of business in there. I was like, this is just crazy. The more I researched, the more I, learned, NBA is not the only one. You see NBA, Hollywood, Wall Street, academias, big tech, Congress and local congresses and farmland. There's so much thing in the United States being run by the Chinese Communist Party because China knows that they're not strong enough to invade America from the outside, but they can do it from the inside. Just today, there was a huge, it's actually everywhere all over the news, a sitting mayor from California, I believe, right? They pled guilty of the CCP spy. So think about it, she is a running mayor. There among us, many people are actually asking me, like, what can I do? I'm not an NBA player. I don't have millions of followers. What can I do? It's actually very simple. When you pick up an item to buy, when it says made in China, put it down. It's literally that simple, But we just have to keep advocating for people. You know, when I had a conversation with many Uyghur people, right? Many Tibetans, Hong Kongers, Taiwanese people, Falun Gongs, people have no idea what's going on over there. American people have no idea what's going on over there. And China, I believe, is the biggest threat to free world. So we got to do whatever we can to, first of all, save America and try to do best we can to fight against that evil regime, and try to do best we can to help each other. You know, we just have to wake up before it's too late. And they're among us. You know, the FBI just caught the mayor today. But trust me, there are so many more sitting politicians, or you know, Hollywood actors, or many people out there that is being run by the Chinese Communist Party. You know, in my book, I criticize LeBron James a lot. I'm sure some of you might be a fan of LeBron James, which he just got swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm so happy about it. But for example, him, right? You know, when he was out there talking about the problems that are happening in America, right? He was the first athlete, called himself more than an athlete. He called himself an activist, a freedom fighter, right? He was saying, America is wrong, we gotta fix this, we gotta fix that. And a reporter, right, simply asked him, well, what do you think about the things that are happening in Hong Kong? That's when Daryl Morey, I'm sure you guys know who that is. He was the general manager of Houston Rockets, and he simply tweeted and said, stand with Hong Kong. And it became a huge mess for the NBA, and NBA has lost $150 million just because of one tweet, and China stopped showing every NBA games on television. So they simply asked, what do you think about it, right? This player said, well, you know, he was not educated about the situation, he has to do more research and blah, blah. And people started to attack him really bad because, well, I thought you were a freedom fighter. And that's the one thing that I think the China is doing, try to silence anyone who has a platform in America. I think America just cannot bow down to these dictatorships out there, you know. But I'm hopeful. I have a lot of hopes because whenever I see, you know, brave activists like this that have family on their line or millions of dollars on their line and still wants to go out there and try to bring awareness for their country or for their cause, it gives me so much hope. So I just want to say thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for supporting, you know, this whole thing, because this is not political. I don't care if you vote for the right, vote for the left, support whoever you support. You know, human rights is above politics. So we have to do whatever we can to, you know, save America, save innocent people. And again, thank you guys for being here. This is an amazing. It means a lot to activists out there, you know, because the hardest thing, what a human rights activist has to go through, what their family has to go through. So this is like a big family and giving so much support. So I just want to say thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Ennis. Rinpoche. Arjia was discovered in 1952 when he was only a toddler after a long search for the reincarnation of the monastery's beloved spiritual leader. From that time on, he and his two brothers lived at the monastery, where he learned to be a Buddhist monk. That was his life leading up to October 15th, 1958, the day everything came crashing down. Arjia stood by helplessly as Chinese soldiers arrested about 500 monks. Many were shoved onto trucks and taken to prison, never to be seen again. He was too young to understand. He was not too young to be terrified. Arjia's story is different from some of the other accounts in this book. He was never a bold crusader for democracy and human rights. He was subjected to communist re-education from childhood and forced to endure humiliation after humiliation for decades in order to help his people and simply to survive. And he finally found the courage to break free. What Arjia and the monks had to endure on that October day and the days to follow was so horrific, I hardly know where to begin. Along with nearly 100 other children, many of whom had been in training to be monks, he was taught to eavesdrop on others and report anything suspicious. He was also told to keep an eye out for hiding places where any of the monks might have stored objects that hadn't been confiscated. Most degrading of all, he learned how to denounce those who were labeled as counter-revolutionaries in line with the Great Leap Forward, the CCP's campaign to switch from an agrarian to industrialized society. All this, again, at 8 years old. Can you take us back to that day, what you remember, and how it shaped the rest of your life?
First of all, thank you so much, everyone. I listened to the previous speakers. Very much encouraged me. You know, everybody was doing wonderful and incredible things for supporting the religious freedom and human rights, and especially you. Thank you so much. So anyway, so when I was two people monks from our monastery recognized me as a reincarnation. Then I went to a monastery and studied there, and I grew up there. So all monks treated me very well because they considered me as a living Buddha. So then come to 1958, then all of a sudden my life is upside down. Michael, thank you. You put everything together. So that's a nightmare for me. So I always remember that. So that's almost 70 years ago. I can recall that's a story. One day, we have almost 4,000 monks in our monastery. One day we had a kind of a big meeting in the courtyard. So that courtyard usually is a ceremonial courtyard. We're doing a celebration for the Buddha's birthday or New Year and so forth. But that day is very different. All monks gathered there and sitting on the floor. Then on the stage, all Chinese communist officials sitting on the stage. And the People's Liberation Army, fully loaded and with long rifles, and surround the monks. All 4,000 monks gathered in that yard. Then one Chinese leader stand up and on the stage start yelling at us. So I don't think the monks understand what he's saying, but when see his face, he was very angry and saying lots of things. After his talk, then all of a sudden, from one corner, one person stand up and shouting out the slogans, said, time to uncover the lid of the feudalism and crack down the superstitious religion and take revenge for the enemies and denounce and criticize those counter-revolutionaries. And after that slogans, then some people with militias and supported by the People's Liberation Army and jump in that crowd, then start arresting people. Then the first person is our former abbot. Then he was arrested and with a big rope tied it up and started beating him. So he is a very gentle, small-sized person. He can't handle that. He was start crying and pleading people to please release me. I can't handle that. So people didn't listen to him and even getting worse, beating him and like that. After that, one by one, and from that crowd, maybe 500-600 monks are arrested that day. Then the military person pointing the guns and lead them to outside in a car loaded in big military trucks, and they put in jail. So after big chaos, a few hours, then everybody's this meeting was over. Then when I was 8, I have lots of people serving me. So started that day, I'm single, nobody's with me. Then I don't know where I should go, what I should do, I didn't know. Then somehow I went back to my place. Then my room was occupied by some strangers. Then all the belongings are confiscated. Then I was crying. Then I don't know where I should go. Then I was really hungry as well. So then one older man came and adopted me. So that is the 1958. I always remember that story. Then afterwards, I went through all of the Chinese Communist campaign, like a Great Leap Forward and religious reform and big famine, and thousands of people, no food, and died on the street and so forth. I witnessed everything. Then after that, I went through all the Cultural Revolution. I was working in the fields due to a labor camp so many years. So then 1998, I was back to a political stage. I have a very high position. However, because of the Panchen Lama's reincarnation, so we have two spiritual leaders in Tibet. One is His Holiness Dalai Lama. One is the Panchen Lama. When Panchen Lama passed away, then His Holiness Dalai Lama identified one person for his reincarnation. Then all Tibetans are supporting him and very happy. However, the Chinese government said, no, we have to cancel this one and replace the one person for the 11th Panchen Lama. So that's, I can't recognize because I have so many comfort at that time. So, but I have to sacrifice everything. I think my belief and my faith and my religion is important, and that's money and the comfort and the position. So then I decided to escape, come to US. I'm searching for freedom for religion and everything. So today we had this wonderful gathering. I heard lots of things from the previous speakers, and then thank you so much, Mike, and thank you so much, Ambassador, and I will end here.
Thank you. Thank all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The CCP hides its atrocities, and it demands silence of all of us. It is a form of lying, and it can become complicity, as Solzhenitsyn said. And these witnesses today, and I want to thank all of them, both panels, are brave and inspirational people. They are heroes. And they suffered a lot. They experienced the rupture. It really impressed me when I hear their stories, how they experienced the rupture of, from their own families, in many cases, and from their countries, and from their homeland. But their faith is intact, their honor is intact, their integrity is intact. So thank you very much. We're getting some feedback here. Is there? Okay, thank you. So you may step down now.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Now it's my honor to introduce the Honorable Frank Wolf. Mr. Wolf was a member of Congress representing the 10th District of Virginia for many years and was head of the powerful Appropriations Committee in Congress. But what he is known for most of all is being the godfather of the international religious freedom movement. And he was the original sponsor of the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, which has been named for him. And this created the infrastructure that would institutionalize religious freedom as a pillar in U.S. foreign policy. Frank, you have traveled throughout the world advocating religious freedom, defending those who are persecuted. You went to the Soviet Union, went to the Gulag during the Cold War. You've been through Africa. I know you were in Iraq soon after ISIS was cleared. Maybe they were still around in certain parts. You have gone to China disguised as a trekker. So you have saved many lives along the way, and you have gotten many prison releases. And you don't stop. I know that Sam and I hear continuously from you about new policy ideas on how to advance religious freedom. So thank you for coming here today. Look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, I want to thank you, Nina. Thank you very, very much. And I want to thank the panelists. Your story needs to get out, and hopefully there will be some group to come together to make sure that every member of Congress, both Republican and Democrat, gets a copy of this book. And the people in the State Department that are involved in this issue ought to get this book. And every American employee in the embassy in Beijing should get this book. But the stories are very, very powerful, and thank you. God bless you. You have suffered so much, and I'm very, 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 very grateful. And I thank Ambassador Brownback for writing the book. I want to congratulate the ambassador for the book, and hopefully this will be the spark that gets the problem in China dealt with. I've traveled with Ambassador Brownback and have seen him in action in Darfur, one of the darkest places in the world. I admire Ambassador Brownback for his commitment to the issue of religious freedom. He didn't go downtown and go with a lobby group. He did this. He could have made a fortune. He did this, and I thank him really for what he's done and for what he will be doing for many years to come. In China, we see massive, rising hostility to religious freedom. China is the cause, the enabler of most of our global rights issues, human rights issues, and this issue must be elevated to a national security issue. China is involved with Russia. You all know that. China is helping North Korea. China is giving support to Iran. We have had some American soldiers in Iran killed, and China's been giving drones and aiding and abetting the Iranians. And it's increasing its involvement in Africa and South and Central America. The Bible has much to say about persecution, oppression, and ultimately freedom. In Ecclesiastes 4:1, it said, "Again I looked, I saw all the oppression," and they've seen the oppression, "that was taking place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed," and these words will hurt you, "and they have no comforter." Power was on the side of the oppressors, and they have no comforter. Isaiah 58:10 said, "If you satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday." This is what the Word of God tells us. This is the heart of God. It is not an editorial in a newspaper or a resolution passed by Congress. It is what God commands us to do. Faith communities in many countries feel abandoned. They feel abandoned and they feel doomed. Many of you know the words of the Simon and Garfunkel song, "The Boxer." It says, "Man hears what he wants to hear, and then disregards the rest. There are the cries of the persecuted that we are disregarding and we are refusing to hear. I've seen firsthand the results of religious persecution. I've traveled to lands forever changed by atrocities committed there. I've spoken with men and women who have experienced unimaginable suffering and loss. I saw it in China on my visits with Congressman Chris Smith, and quite frankly, let me just put an editorial in here. Congressman Chris Smith is one of the finest congressmen in the history of our country, not just that I've served with, in the history of that country. And I think President Trump should nominate Chris Smith for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Chris Smith has done more than anybody else in the history from 250 years back. He should be brought to the White House. And by doing that, by having Mr. Smith stand there, that would send a message to everybody in the world, but it would also send a message to every congressman. They ought to be involved and be doing this. When I was with Chris, we saw when Chinese government detains and harasses and imprisons Catholic bishops and Protestant house church leaders. I saw it when I slipped into Tibet, where there are security police in every Buddhist monastery. Every Buddhist monastery we went into had security, public security police there. And it is against the law. It is against the law to have a picture of the Dalai Lama. Many times people would come up to us and just show us the picture. And then we had a cab driver take us by the vicious, notorious Dropsy prison where many monks and nuns have been taken. In Hong Kong, the 94-year-old, God bless him, Catholic Cardinal Zen was arrested in 2022 by government security police for support of pro-democracy advocates like Jimmy Lai, who himself, and I hope with President Trump's advocating for him publicly, he'll be released and put on the plane Air Force One and taken back with President Trump here to the United States. But Jimmy Lai is in a Chinese prison. Congressman Smith and I visited Beijing prison #1, where Tiananmen Square demonstrators were jailed. It was brutal. And to think of Jimmy Lai and also Joshua Wong and many of the others in Hong Kong in those prisons, and there's almost silence from the West. The Falun Gong faced severe persecution, and there are continued reports of organ harvesting from Falun Gong practitioners and others. According to Human Rights Research Center, in 2022, there were 157,494 victims of organ harvesting. I met the only person, and Nina was there, and Bob Dester was the only person who's still alive, who slipped out after that organ harvesting, but most of them, they die, and many of them die right on the table. And more than 1 million Uyghurs have been placed in detention camps. Former detainees report torture, rape, sterilization, and organ harvesting. There has never been a greater need for action, and yet the cries of the persecuted are often met with deafening silence. Reverend Jim Dennison, who is a pastor down in Dallas, Texas, and publishes the Daily Dennison Forum, said that, and I want to be careful when I say, knowing is not doing in the context of living one's life. He emphasized the distinction between merely knowing the teaching in daily life, but doing it. He then says true faith is demonstrated through actions. It's great to go to a place and know and find out, but what are you going to do about it with these people that have gone through what they've gone through? There are many things that can be done to help the persecuted in China. But for you here today, I want to suggest something that can have really a big impact. It has to do with banning lobbying for China. One of the recommendations of the U.S. Commission for International Religious Freedom, which Nina served on probably longer than any other person in the history of the country, this is what they said in the 2024 report. It says, quote, the U.S. Congress should ban foreign lobbying by agents representing the Chinese government and as state-affiliated commercial entities that undermine religious freedom and related human rights. And at the end of the section, nobody has even looked at this thing. At the end of the section, the China section, there were additional views signed by all 9 commissioners, both Republican and Democrat. They all advocated. They all advocated for the ban. Why does some congressman not put a bill in and call a vote on it to have it? Let the American people see. Are you wanting to see them to have lobbyists that spend thousands of millions of dollars? And yet 9 commissioners, and I haven't seen any action on the part of Congress. In the 2026 annual report, it makes the recommendations to ban lobbying for any countries designated as CPC, country of particular concern, like China. I know those of you who are a little older will understand this. Maybe some of the younger ones will not. But keep in mind that no American lobby firm would have ever represented the Soviet Union during the days of John F. Kennedy and Ronald Reagan. Today, no American lobby firm should be allowed to represent China with its human rights and religious freedom violation, which you have heard about today. I mean, I think all of you, this group, somebody ought to send a copy of this book to every member of Congress, House and Senate. They all should get a copy. Some will read it, some won't, but they all should get a body. It is also, as Mr. Brownback has said, as a national security issue as well, and I quite think that he's right, a threat to the United States. A lobby ban on China would help all, not some, all of the religious groups in China. It would be, as Jim Dennison said, it would be doing and not just knowing. There are 2 quotes from people who knew about problems and who also did something about the problems. In the 18th century, British parliamentarian William Wilberforce said this to his fellow countrymen about the evils of the slave trade. Wilberforce said, "You may choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you do not know." We now know. We now know because we heard these panelists speak. You've heard the testimony from the victims, and Ambassador Brownback's book tells of it. So we can never again say, well, I didn't know that that's going on. The NBA can never say, I didn't know that that's going on. It's going on because you can now buy the book and see how bad it is. The second quote is from a friend of German pastor and anti-Nazi dissident Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And he said, silence in the face of evil is evil itself. He said, not to speak is to speak. And then he said, not to act is to act. So please do something. Speak out like Ambassador Brownback, God bless him, does in his book, to ban lobbying for China. It can be done. It can be done. I mean, it can be done, and it must be done. In closing, Bobby Kennedy, who I always admired, I'm a Republican, a conservative Republican, but I've always admired Bobby Kennedy for his vision and taking on really tough issues. He was the brother, as many of you know, of President John F. Kennedy, and he spoke before a group of students in South Africa in June of 1966. And here's what Bobby Kennedy said. A third danger is timidity. Few men are willing to brave the disapproval of their fellows, the censure of their colleagues, and the wrath of their society. And then Bobby Kennedy said, moral courage is a rarer commodity than bravery in battle or great intelligence. And then he closed by saying, yet it is the one essential, vital quality of those who seek to change a world which yields most painfully to change. We must work together to help the good people of China, and one significant way is to ban lobbying for China.
Well, I want to thank Frank Wolf. It was Congressman Wolf who appointed me to the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. That's why I was the longest serving commissioner. So thank you again, Frank, for today. And I would be remiss if I didn't call out the names of the Catholic bishops detained in China today. These are on the mainland. They are detained without due process. Some of them have disappeared. Some have been detained for years, others for months, multiple times, numerous times. And the Vatican's 2018 agreement has not made a difference. So their names are Bishop Ma, Bishop Xing, Bishop Shao, Bishop Su, Bishop Guo, Bishop Kui Tai, Bishop Shi, and Bishop Zhang. So I am very honored to be part of Sam Brownback's book. I have not suffered like the others, but I'm there because I reported on with what's going on with the Catholic repression of the Catholic Church in China, which not many people know about, unfortunately. So I want to thank everyone who participated today. I want to thank you all for coming. Most of all, I want to thank Ambassador Brownback for convening this incredible group of people, of witnesses to their faith and to their courage. And thank you, Frank Wolf. Thank you all for coming. The books are available for sale outside. They're also available on Amazon.